Hey folks, I'm live and I detected it on time. So here we go. All right, I need to adjust things. So it looks like I'm looking at the camera and not like way below the camera. All right. So hope everybody had a fab weekend and is lining up to have a fantastic week. I gotta close all these chat windows over here so I don't get distracted by them while I'm talking. So I wanted to go over a thing that has been talked about a bunch lately, and that I see a lot of authors doing with their Facebook ads, and that is running untargeted Facebook ads. And by untargeted Facebook ads, it basically means picking nothing in the target in the interest section when you make an ad. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you what I mean by this. All right. Just zoom that in and screen share, present. I should have been more prepared for this, but I got distracted. And then at the last minute, I'm like, oh crap, I need to start doing this because I scheduled in advance. Okay. So you should now be seeing my screen. I'm just going to do this version here. So it's a little bit bigger. All right. By the way, say hi. See a few folks are here. Let me know whatever. That's the technical term, whatever. Let me know how you're doing, where you're from, who's here. Did I put this in all the right groups? Ads and marketing. I actually want to add one more placement that I meant to add. There we go. Adding my main profile as well, because I need everybody to see this. Hey, Gina and Lois. Tennessee. I was hoping to be in Tennessee this June, but it turns out it's going to be next June that I'll be there. Hey, Cytheros. Okay, so the thing that I'm seeing is people are, some big websites, this sets up properly. We're on an ad set for a brand new ad. We'll ignore budget and all that and just kind of go down here and look at audience. Basically, what people are doing is they're on advice from a particular ad expert. I don't actually know who it was. I've just heard people talking about it, about this person's course and what they taught, is leaving this entire section sort of in the default setting, though I would imagine you change country a little bit. And that's, it's interesting. It's advice that I've actually been giving for a while, but under very specific circumstances. I first started experimenting with this about a year ago, but it depends so much on how much of the available group of people might have your audience in it. So like, let's say, for example, so we've got, if you leave the targeting on Facebook wide open here for the United States, Facebook has a maximum of about 281 million people that it can reach. Now, let's say that I'm talking science fiction. That's what I write. And I want to find people who are interested. My books are all about sci-fi. If you don't like sci-fi, you're not going to like my books. And let's say that, I don't know, 10% of the American population is into science fiction in one form or another. Well, that's 30 million people, just for easy math. Why am I going to spend money, and I mean money, showing my ad to the other 270-ish million people? I guess it's like, according to be like, it'd be 2.8 million that like it, and I don't feel like doing the math. But basically, I'm just trying to find the right words for it. It's foolish to do that, because what you're going to do is you're going to pay Facebook to identify for you all of the people who don't like your book, when you can already do that with the interest system that they've built. Now, let's say, to change this up a little bit, that I write contemporary romance. Now, contemporary romance has a much larger audience. In fact, one could actually posit that, not posit, it's been said that half of the women in the United States read romance in one form or another. Maybe they're not all reading a book a day, but they're at least reading a book or two a year. Now, what that means is that there are about 75 million women in the United States who read romance. But again, why would I target all 281 million people in the United States who read romance? So first off, let's just change our gender to women for the argument of romance here, because we don't need to be arguing. We don't need to be advertising to anyone who's not a woman for romance novels. Yes, there are men who read romance, but we're going to get way more bang for our buck if we just run these ads towards women. And let's also say, like, you know what? most of, even though younger people do read romance, a lot of them, maybe my romance isn't for them. Maybe, I mean, they don't read as many books as older people do because they don't have the time. When they're teenagers, they do, but once they go to college, they don't have time to read anymore. And then they have jobs and paying off debt, and then they have kids. And it's not until your 40s that you have time to read a lot again. So let's say women over 40 and in the United States, that brought us down to 71 million. I think what was it, 18? Was it 150 million? So there are already a lot of younger people on Facebook, and you certainly can test out advertising them to them. I would actually try doing it as 2 separate ads and then track my conversions to see which one's working better. So this is more reasonable. If you were to come to me and say, like, I'm a romance author, I write mainstream contemporary romance, and I want to try untargeted ads, I would say go ahead and do this. At least narrow down your age range, select women, and run an ad like that. But then I would also say, why not just put in contemporary romance and romance novels? Why not pick those two? Collectively, they're going to give me 20 million people to run my ad to. And hi from Italy, does that mean that you're Deborah, or does that mean that you're someone else from Italy? Because one of my clients / friends just went to Italy. But anyway, this would be a better way of running it, right? 20 million people is still oodles of people to run your ad to. And we know that these people like contemporary romance specifically. So the idea of running an untargeted ad when I can target this so well just sort of seems silly. And you have to remember that what Facebook's built for, and sometimes what these people are advising when they're doing things. Like if I was running advertising toothbrushes, I would run targeted ads because everybody needs a toothbrush, and my ad is going to show a freaking toothbrush, right? So it's going to make it pretty simple. Or I'm going to show a smile or something like that. Like something that's going to make it very obvious that this is a toothbrush ad that I'm selling here, running here. So that would be a great scenario where I would run an untargeted ad. But when I can do targeting, when Facebook has the targeting that I want, it seems almost foolish to do this. Now, I recommend against advantage detailed targeting because what it's basically doing is it's layering a lookalike audience on top of my other audience. And it's interesting, what you can see here is I know the sizes of these audience, right? So before I put in contemporary romance and romance novels, I had a 71 million person audience. And when I hit advantage detailed targeting, I'm pretty sure that what it's doing is it's just removing the interests. And it's giving me the full size audience that my age selection is and age and gender selection have selected for me. So I'm not against doing this. I just really feel feel free to run both, but run both with ad creative that works. And then run a head-to-head test of targeted versus untargeted. So build one that's targeted like this, hone your ad creative and get ad creative that's working really well, and then swap it over and run an untargeted ad and see which one works better. Do that. Don't try to spark up a whole new ad and test untargeted stuff and brand new creative that you've never tested before. That will go sideways. So, and if you do that as well, keep in mind that if you're not narrowing down by people who read books, then your ad has to scream book. The ad creative that you put up when you're picking ad media in here. Actually, let me switch this over to dynamic creative, just because I'm so used to using dynamic creative that my brain doesn't quite recognize. This is what are you showing here, Mal? That's not dynamic creative. I'm just going to pop this off the screen for a second and pick my page. MB Cooper. And then we'll pop this back on. Does it make sense to use the same stock pictures? I mean, it can make sense to use the same stock pictures. You might not want to, though, because they might be oversaturated. If you can find new ones, then I would probably try and use new ones other people aren't using. All right. So when you pick your images, if you go and pick a bunch of, and I'm one of the strongest recommenders. Is that what I'm looking for? Come on. There's the Instagram pictures. Where's something with a book in it? Trying to see if I have any. I don't personally often ever run ads that have a book on the cover, primarily because I'm pretty particular with my targeting to begin with. Let's take this one right here. So if you are going to run an untargeted Facebook ad, put a book cover on the image like I've done on this one here, because you really need that ad to say book. Because if you take a bunch of people who are just regular non-book reading folks or currently not interested in books, but they like something they see in your ad and they click your ad and they land on the Amazon page and then they immediately leave because they're not interested in buying a book, Amazon counts that against you, because Amazon just says, wow, another person that doesn't want to buy this book. Noted. You want to reduce that as much as possible. Now, Amazon recognizes that you're probably going to get a conversion, somewhere they would have won 50 clicks to make a sale, but you need to be working on getting that number better, not making it worse by sending bad traffic to your site, to your page on Amazon. So do this if you're going to do an untargeted ad. Make sure that the image screams book, and then also make sure. I don't want a phone number. Take that away. Make sure that your headlines, screen book and stuff like that. Don't just have nothing being book. Also, I've seen some advice recently, and I was sort of flabbergasted to see it, where the advice was to not put anything into one of the headlines and one of the. Let me actually put a URL in here too, so it actually loads something. www.amazon.com. All right. The advice was to make it so that you had some primary text, obviously like real text in here, and then headline, but leaving the first ones blank. It's going to make an ad that looks like this. And that's not what you want, right? It's going to, obviously it's going to, let me actually get an actual book link. Okay, there we go. So I just linked to Amazon.com. So when you don't do that, the headline is actually the title of the page that you're linking to. And so this, that's what it's going to look like. It's not going to look like it's an ad for anything, especially if there's a picture of your book, great, you've got something going for you. But otherwise, you're going to end up with this ad that signals nobody is sure about the genre or trope on it all. No one even knows it's a book. It could be just an ad for, I don't know, phones. If this girl was just sitting there, or maybe it's an ad for the sweater or a hair product. You have to think about that. This ad could be for anything, and it has to scream book if you're going to be doing wild untargeted advertising. Now, generally what I recommend is that all of your headlines should say something about book in them. Read, binge, series, story, tale, something like that. If your page name also says something like author on it, or you're using a passion page that says books, that's great too. But it's really important to do that. Also, from a giving Facebook so some people are like, well, what if Facebook decides that it works better without any text? That's why we always leave a description empty, because that gives Facebook an empty string to try out. Rarely will it do it because it doesn't really actually work that well. So really, you really want to be not doing this. You want to be making sure that your primary text and your headlines have text in them, even just a little bit, and that your headlines all say book. That's less important if you have an actual book on the image, but if you're going untargeted with your ads, I really recommend that you also you do both of those things, because you're just casting the net so wide. So that's my take on that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. I know actually. I think it's a different person that's suggesting leaving these things blank than it is suggesting doing the unrestricted targeting. But both of those are not good ideas. And you also need to think about the whole context of your ad, right? Who am I advertising to? What genre and trope stuff do I need to signal? Can I do that with just the image alone and signal that it's a book? Will that be too cluttered? All of these things matter. And the wider you cast your net, the more work your ad creative has to do, which isn't the end of the world. It just means that there's more work that your ad creative has to do. Let's do another scenario here where I'm going to advertise to men who read science fiction. So my default audience for men ages 40 and above on Facebook is 53 million people. And I could theoretically advertise my sci-fi books to this audience. Now, I would probably need to go with some of my more generically branded sci-fi books, ones that look like they're more appealing to everybody, because my sci-fi books feature a lot of queer women as protagonists, and that doesn't go as well with the general audience. So I probably need to pick a book that doesn't, and then have like more of a general cover, because I really do need to make sure that people are going to be keen on what I'm selling. I could show my ads to the full male audience and just make it really obvious that these are queer books. But I might end up getting a lot of comments I don't want it. I have to police and stuff like that. So that's a reason why I might not do that. But again, I could also go in here and choose like space opera, which is entertainment and media category, hard science fiction. I can go hit some suggestions here. Maybe I'll grab science fantasy, speculative fiction. Why not? I don't know if there's anything else that's like straight up science fiction here. But that gives me that only gives me an audience of 3 million people, so I might actually want to boost this a bit. Science fiction is a bit of a smaller one, but also if you look at this and you're like, okay, my book sits squarely in these categories here, and Facebook only has an audience of 3.3 million. You can look at this one of two ways, right? One way would be like, of that 53 million people, how many more people would be interested in my books? But how many people wouldn't be? So what I would probably do is I would spark up an ad hitting my target audience here, and I would really hone my creative and get that working. Get creative I know is going to work really well, and creative that screams science fiction and book. So that the ad itself, if you see the ad just anywhere, you'd be like, that's for a sci-fi book, and there's like no question in your mind that's what it's for. Then I might take that ad that is working well, duplicate the ad set, and then try running it to an untargeted audience and see how that works. But I would not start with untargeted audience with brand new ad creative. I would totally get something that I know works. But in my experience, for sci-fi, this doesn't work very well, going untargeted, even with an audience that works well. It works. You can get away with it in really big genres, namely thrillers and romance, where you can just run an untargeted ad, because the percentage of people, like the percentage of the general population who reads that kind of book is so high, whereas the comparative percentage of the population that reads science fiction books is actually pretty small. So like, why would I hit the entire audience? Like, yeah, I think like you got to think on the realm of like selling toothbrushes versus selling a very specific mod for a car, for a very specific model and year range of car, right? Like, yes, run your toothbrush ads to everybody, but maybe don't take that particular car mod and try and run an ad to everybody in the United States. It just doesn't make any sense. And our book genres are like that too. Not all books are books, right? There's different types of books, there's different audiences. So while I'm not against doing unrestricted targeting, one, you've got to kind of already if you have an established name, it helps a lot. And two, you have to be in one of the bigger genres. If you're not doing one of those things, it can be risky. But if you do decide to do it, build up some creative with a targeted audience that you know works well, that you know converts and sells books. Weed out the things that don't work. Make sure every element of this, every possible combination of how your images and text can be put together screams book, and then use that creative for your untargeted ad. That's the way I would go about doing that. Well, hello, Jill. I'm just about done now. I've wrapped up my rant. So I hope everybody has a fantabulous week. I'll be back on Thursday for regular lunch with Mal, and we'll probably chat about this a little bit and perhaps some other things too. So have yourselves a fantastic day. Bye-bye.